Imagine being so rich, so powerful, that you never had to deal with flies again. Not because you invented bug spray, but because you made someone else the bug trap. That's the story of Pharaoh Pepi II, the boy king of ancient Egypt who supposedly found a solution to one of humanity's oldest problems, in one of history's strangest ways. The child who became a god, Pepi II, became pharaoh around 2278 BCE, at only 6 years old. His father was gone, and a small, pampered child was suddenly divine. In Egypt, the pharaoh wasn't just king. He was the living Horus. Every blink was sacred, every whim a command. He grew up in a palace of priests and servants where obedience was worship. And amid all that holiness, the one thing that still annoyed this tiny god was flies. The oldest nuisance in the world, the Nile Delta, was paradise and a pest pit. Warm air, still water, animals, crops, and endless clouds of insects. Most Egyptians endured them. But for Pepi II, an insect's touch was blasphemy. So when later historians tell us he devised a royal solution, you already know it won't be sensible. The honey solution, according to ancient accounts, Pepi II ordered slaves to be smeared with honey so that flies would stick to them instead of him. Picture it. A small boy god reclining on a golden stool while shimmering attendants stood nearby, covered head to toe in sticky sweetness, black dots of buzzing life crawling over their skin. It's grotesque, absurd, and disturbingly believable. Luxury and cruelty to a divine child. The honey-covered servants weren't people, they were equipment. When every breath you take is praised as holy, empathy starts to look optional. And in the logic of the palace, keeping the pharaoh comfortable was cosmic duty. If flies annoyed the god king, trapping them on human honey traps maintained Ma'at, universal order. A clean civilization, ironically. Egyptians were obsessed with cleanliness. They bathed daily, shaved their heads, used perfumes and scented oils. So, of course, a pampered godchild who hated grime would hate flies more than death itself. Truth or mockery? No Egyptian texts mention honey slaves. The story surfaces centuries later in Greek and Roman writings that often mocked Eastern decadence. It could be satire, an ancient editorial cartoon, or it could be one of those exaggerated truths that history can't resist. Plausible, funny, horrifying. Because absolute power always breeds absurd stories. And Pepi II's empire, nearing collapse, was already a honey trap of its own. Egypt in decline while Pepi II basked in luxury. Egypt's old kingdom began to crumble. Local governors grew stronger, crops failed, and the people who built the pyramids now starved. And above it all sat a boy king who, legend says, never felt a fly land on him. Section 1 closing, so here's the scene. A 6-year-old god on a golden throne. Servants glistening with honey under a burning sun. And a legend that outlived every monument he ever built. Maybe it was satire. Maybe it was truth. Either way, Pharaoh Pepi II's fly problem shows what happens when divine power meets human absurdity. Next, we peel back the myth to see what this sticky little story really says about psychology, symbolism, and the slow death of an empire. So, did Pepi II really cover people in honey to lure flies away? Maybe, maybe not. The tale survives only through later Greek and Roman writers who loved portraying ancient Eastern rulers as soft, decadent, and ridiculous. But the reason the story endures isn't because it's true. It's because it feels true. Too real to be false, it perfectly fits our image of the God King. Adored, isolated, and utterly detached from normal life. Could the honey trick have happened once? Perhaps as a palace joke that became legend? Possibly. But whether literal or exaggerated, it captured how divine privilege insulated rulers from reality. Flies in Egyptian symbolism, here's the twist. Flies weren't always bad omens. Small fly-shaped amulets symbolized perseverance and valor. Soldiers earned golden fly medals for bravery. Yet the same insect was a carrier of rot, buzzing between the living and the dead. So when the story spread that Pepi used humans as flytraps, it worked as satire. The Medal of Courage transformed into the badge of slavery. A very long untouched rule reportedly lasted over 90 years, the longest in history. He outlived advisors, generals, and heirs. His reign began in splendor and ended in disunity. By the time he died, Egypt's centralized power had melted away like wax in the sun. The image of a ruler swatting away flies or outsourcing them became prophetic. While he distracted himself with comfort, the real pests were eating Egypt alive. The empire decays. After Pepi's death came drought, civil unrest, and the first intermediate period, 2 centuries of chaos. It's tempting to imagine the honey story as metaphor, a warning that when leaders isolate themselves from discomfort, they lose touch with the swarm outside their palace walls. Why the story stuck, the reason this tale still lives after 4,000 years is simple. It's sticky. It's grotesque, funny, and perfectly human. A god terrified of flies. A kingdom decaying while the servants glisten. It turns grandeur into farce, and farce is unforgettable. The legacy of the Honey King. Modern historians see Pepi II as both tragic and symbolic. He ruled too long, learned nothing new, and became a ghost of his own golden age. Whether or not he ever ordered the honey ritual, the story preserves the feeling of his reign. Excess without empathy, ritual without purpose. When archaeologists speak of the collapse of the Old Kingdom, they might as well be describing the world's most expensive fly trap finally snapping shut. Final closing, so here's the tally. A child god who reigned for nearly a century. A legend that he turned people into bug repellent. A dynasty that rotted while its ruler stayed spotless. Maybe Pepi II never drowned his slaves in honey, but his story still clings to history, thick, golden, and impossible to wash off. Because sometimes the most revealing thing a ruler ever does is how he deals with the flies.